What is going on, everybody? And in this episode, we are going to talk about war. Now, there has been many wars fought over the years and during human history, but there has been some wars that almost happened. What would have happened if these wars did start? Well, that is what we are going to talk about in this episode. But before we do, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell. Now, without any delays, let's get started. World War III. Many people talk about World War III, and many feel that World War III will happen. They just don't know how or when. However, World War III almost did happen. The year was 1948, and the dust of the Second World War was just settling. After a brief period of kicking Nazis' ass with the Allies with Joseph Stalin, the Soviet dictator, Stalin decided that it was time to start acting like a supervillain again. Berlin was starting out its new life as a divided city, with the eastern half in Soviet hands and the west under Allied control. Stalin, however, wasn't about to settle for half of the cake. He blockaded Berlin from all Western military and civilian traffic. Since West Berlin was completely surrounded by the wholly communist German Democratic Republic, thus Stalin was effectively given the Western powers a giant middle finger. This would give West Berlin about a month until West Berlin would begin to starve. Stalin never wanted to start a war with the West, however he needed to appear strong, which required constant tension with the West. However, the United States was ready to go to war if Stalin wanted to. General Lucius D. Clay, the head of the occupation zone in Germany, advocated sending an armed convoy to battle. This would effectively start World War III with the Soviet Union. Although the suggestion was risky, World War II had shown that the Soviet troops weren't exactly pushovers. The Joint Chiefs of Staffs took it very seriously. So you might ask, what stopped the war? Fortunately, rather than start World War III, Allied forces decided to give peace a chance. They started a 15-month airlift operation carrying supplies for West Berliners until Stalin got bored and backed off. This, of course, would be the event the world would remember as the Berlin Airlift. What would have happened if the war had started? Most likely, World War III would have been nothing but a nuclear war. Two superpowers throwing nukes at each other. The Soviet Union and China nearly destroyed each other during the Cold War. Being the two communist superpowers, the Soviet Union and China were technically fighting on the same side during the Cold War. In reality, though, the two countries had constant disputes, accusing one another of overreacting and getting into arguments over territory. They pretty much argued over everything, over land, over territory, over weapon. The only thing that they had in common was their hatred for the West and the United States. By the late 1960s, arguments escalated. The Soviet Union had denied Mao, the chairman of China at the time, to help aid on building atomic bombs for him. Mao felt because the Soviet Union were not aiding him on building him atomic bombs, he was getting disrespected by the Soviet Union. So in 1969, the Chinese military invaded Soviet Union. Mao was trying to claim a lot of the Soviet Union territory belonged to China. Things proceeded as you'd assume. Shots were fired, soldiers were killed, both sides moved more troops to the region, while the United States pretty much sat back and watched it from the side. So what stopped the war? Mao eventually backed down. Both sides ultimately agreed that war would not be the solution on solving the problem. Plus, both sides, the Soviet Union and China, felt that if they were at war with each other, the West would eventually win. What would have happened if the war did start? Two of the biggest armies at the time would have slaughtered each other, with or without nukes. The United States most likely would have stand to the side, while China and the Soviet Union would have fought one another, killing millions, resulting in the US victory. France and Britain almost messed up World War I before it even began. As friendly as France and England are now, it's easy to forget that they were once enemies for about 800 years. They did have a dispute with territory over North Africa. The dispute was over who would control Egypt and its hotspots, the Nile River and the Suez Canal. In 1898, France finally got fed up and sent armed expeditions to the Nile. Britain responded by sending its own armed forces to the region. People in the regions got really riled up over the situation and started demanding that their two nations settle the issues like men. That is, with full-scale stupidity and mass killings. So what stopped the war? France realized that the war would be largely a naval one. This meant that they would be facing the British Navy, an unstoppable global force of destruction, which its French counterpart very much wasn't. This meant that the French army, which was very capable of challenging the Brits, would be doing absolutely nothing, while the British ships tore through their opponents. Realizing this, France backed down and gave up all claim to Egypt. In exchange, the British agreed to friendlier relations. This resolution laid the groundwork for their future friendships, which would soon make the powerful allies you know today, starting by standing against Germany in World War I. Had this not happened, France and Britain would probably be fighting each other while Germany would be invading the two countries. So that's it for this episode of wars that almost did happen, that could have happened. If there's any that I missed that you would like to put in the comments, please do so below, and please be sure to subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you again.